we've followed your commentary. We've seen all of your segments on Tucker Carlson. You've been doing an incredible job. I think personally, though, I'm sure you've angered a lot of people in the Beltway. I'm curious first to get your opinion on how things have panned out in your eyes in the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, because we were following what you were saying even back when you were on Pushback with Aaron Mate back in January before all of this took place. And you were one of the only people that I really trusted that was predicting a Russian invasion. So how have things panned out compared to what you thought was going to take place in Ukraine?
Well, I thought at the time that the Russians would go in, as you point out, and obviously that's happened. I don't know how anyone could have concluded anything else. We've been pushing them for years. And I think the last 8 years has made it clear to them they didn't have any choice if they were going to protect what they think are their security interests in Ukraine. I think if we look at the initial intervention, a couple of things were very obvious. They were going to secure the eastern part of the country, that is east of the Dnipro River, all the way out to the Russian border. They were going to move south to secure the water source for Crimea because the Ukrainians had gone in there and effectively cut off the fresh water that was pumped to Crimea from the mainland. And we wondered what they would do in the northern part of the eastern Ukraine. And many of us concluded that there would not be a serious effort to seize Kiev or Kiev. It's just too big. It's really not necessary for their purposes. And so we concluded, I did, and a lot of people that I trust, that they would put forces in and around Kiev just to tie down the Ukrainian forces there so that they couldn't interfere with what happened further east and further south. I think that's occurred. There may have been an attempt to move into Kiev, but that may have simply been a reconnaissance of force to see how far they could get. But I don't think there was a serious plan to take that city. It's huge. And again, if you're only going to secure the area that is east of the river, remember most of the city is on the west side, about a third of the city is on the east side. And finally, they wanted to move into those areas they knew were friendly to them, which meant they didn't want to be tied down in areas where they knew they were going to run into stiff Ukrainian resistance. I think they got about 50 to 60% of what they wanted. I think they were an army without a lot of military experience in the field fighting anyone, which is true for almost all of us these days. Any army in the West that you send anywhere has seen very little action. That was true of us, by the way, in 1991 when we went in. And you always have mistakes. You find out things that you didn't know about your own force. You see things you would have done differently. That was true for us in 1991. So I think right now what's happened is that everyone is seizing on some feature of this to justify their position, whether it's anti-Russian or pro-Ukrainian or anti-Ukrainian and pro-Russian. I'm an American. I'm not interested in being involved in this war. I don't think that we should involve ourselves in any way. I think waging a proxy war, which is what we're doing right now, by feeding the fires in Ukraine is very dangerous. Especially since Ukraine sits right next door to Russia. This is not Vietnam, where the Russians could supply some things to North Vietnam or to North Korea, but we were both remote from our respective countries. This is a proxy war that's very dangerous because it sits right on the border with Russia. And as far as the alleged atrocities go, we've had a lot of those allegedly committed by Ukrainians. Americans haven't seen the videotapes, haven't seen the photographs because we suppress that information in the West about the Ukrainians. Now we've seen something allegedly committed by the Russians. May have. This may actually have been something a group of Russian soldiers committed. We don't know. And this is the problem. We tend to act on emotion, not rationality. And now I run into people frequently that say, we have to punish the Russians. Well, that's interesting. As world policemen, we're going to punish the Russians. Well, then we might as well punish the Somalis. We might as well punish the Mexicans. We could punish lots of people. Makes no sense whatsoever. We don't know the facts, but we do know that we have two groups of people fighting right now that hate each other. That's pretty obvious. And the best thing we can do is try to bring an end to it, which has been my argument from the beginning. The president of the United States should use his influence not to postpone an end to the war, not to lengthen it, not to make it worse, but to bring it to a close, because the longer it goes on, the more potentially dangerous it becomes for us. Because for Russia, this is an existential matter. This is next door. What happens in Ukraine is critical to them. They don't want a foreign government running the show in Ukraine. They don't want us running the show in Ukraine. They want a government there that's preferably Ukrainian, but not hostile to them. They don't want foreign forces on Ukrainian soil that threaten them. They don't want foreign missiles on Ukrainian soil that puts missiles within a few minutes of flight time from their nuclear deterrent. These are all issues for them. From our standpoint, this is not existential. And I think people have made a mistake. They think, well, we can fight this war to the last Ukrainian and bleed the Russians and make them miserable and harm them. I think it's going to backfire. I think it actually already has on the international level, but that's something we can talk about.